Hey, I'm Helane Cohen alongside my co host and friend, Fede Pacheco, and we're super excited today to talk about security.
That's right. As you might know, security is priority number one here at Microsoft. So it's no surprise that today's episode focuses on that. We understand that if we want to drive successful AI innovation, we need to put security above anything else in this era.
That's for sure. And of course, we've also heard that from our CEO, Satya, and we hear that every day, how important security is. So over the past few months, we've had some really incredible, insightful conversations with partner leaders across 7 different industries. And one common thing we found in those conversations is that every single leader said that security is especially important in their industry. We simply asked them, what role does security play for them? And their answer was very clear.
And it makes sense because if you are in healthcare, you want to protect your patient's data. If you're in retail, you want to protect your customer. Like really, anytime you're innovating, you want to make sure that the data that you have is safe. Data is the fuel for AI, but also data needs to be protected, right? So we have put together that highlight reel of every question that we asked about security and the answers from different leaders and different partner types, different organization types, and across different regions so that you can hear their perspectives into how security plays a role there.
Super exciting. So let's get started.
Yeah, especially in our industry, in retail and consumer goods industry, customers and loyalty are the retailer's most important asset. And if you think about how much data a customer has, retailer has tons of valuable data on their customers, and you have to protect that. A data breach in this industry will have a very huge impact on your brand and definitely your near-term sales, right? So, if there's a data breach and it goes public, customers are going to avoid shopping from your stores and shopping online for a while. And it also damages some of the brand loyalty. So security is definitely a must on, customer data and so forth. Another thing retailers need to contend with from a security perspective is protecting card payment data, right? So not just the customer personal data, but the, level of card payment fraud. There's also, it continues, PCI compliance is always top of mind. So basically, and those are, industry standards. PCI compliance is not anything new. However, they tend to, you have to adjust your security, right? The world changes, hackers change their strategies. And retailers, it's harder because think about, they've got that added challenge of managing security with, users with a high turnover volume, right? You're a retailer, majority of the workers in your store, the frontline workers are either kind of not really long-term career or even just temporary hires. So they're not people that, you don't have that level of like trust and longevity with that employee. And then also lots of physical locations, right? So you're protecting data that, of course you need to protect it in the cloud, but you've got to have data that's physically in the stores. So security is really, really critical, especially for retail consumer goods.
So what is your perspective and what have you done about security to make sure your customers feel good with how their data and everything is being handled?
Yeah, absolutely. I think security is it's top of mind for everyone, as you pointed out. It is a very common conversation. And security is a broad umbrella of many different things. There's compliance, there's HIPAA, there's access control. Obviously, there's preventing cybersecurity attacks and bad actors. But there's also things that are falling into security now around ethics. What should we use? What shouldn't we use? And how do we trust it? And how do we ensure that the insights we're capturing are being secured and given to the right audiences in the right context? What I would say is 10 years ago, 5 years ago, security was a separate project. It was something that was done maybe at the infrastructure layer and then something you would revisit before you went to production or before you really launched it. Where we've evolved is now we talk about secure by design. And security is something that's available and a part of every conversation and a consideration for every phase and every activity throughout the entire process. So rather than focusing on a separate security solution or a separate security conversation. We've really tried to embed it in everything we do, have it in the first conversation, the second conversation, and so forth, because it's not only a conversation you should have with CSOs and CTOs, it's a conversation that the business users and everyone need to be comfortable in because it's just the world we live in today. And so I think for us, securing by design and ensuring that all the aspects of security from compliance to bad actors, the whole gamut that we're protecting and including that in every design and in every implementation. And I think that's where the future's going. Security will just be inclusion, an included topic.
And I love that you're pointing security by design. You're very well aware of that. It's one of our 3 principles as part of our new Secure Future initiative. And I personally believe it's the most important because you cannot isolate it from everything like you were saying. It's got to be, if you're going to really be that growth and innovative partner for your customer, then that means you got to take care of it as much as you got to take care of the exciting, innovative stuff we were talking about.
Right. Yeah, and when we talked about the ecosystem before, being everyone has ecosystems, most industries do, but in healthcare, obviously, with so many entities involved in a treatment plan, just as an example, it becomes even more important. And so now we're having security conversations in our vendor relationships. It's becoming a part of our contractual agreements, and that's why many healthcare entities are trying to bring things in-house because you can only control what you control. And so it is putting more emphasis, and that's why there's more policies, more compliance regulations that are coming about to make sure that everyone is securing by design.
I think this ties really well with our next question, which is about security, because how do we put the same fence we put on around physical products and physical tools that we use? How do we take that to the industrial metaverse, if I may continue with that term? I'm sure it's critical, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on how are you seeing this become such a crucial part of what you do?
Yes, it certainly is. And so the framework that we've always worked on is that we would always take security as number one. We know that cloud in general can sometimes have this cloud over it, or, not to put another cloud on it, this kind of like gray cloud over it, where people aren't sure exactly how it all functions. It's a little bit of a black box right now in terms of knowledge and information. The information and knowledge has grown, and there is plenty of access to resources out there, but it's an adoption phase. And so what we've done is we've made sure that we stay within the highest restrictions of those different components. So whether that be FedRAMP moderate through government, IL5, which we're in process right now, ITAR, SOC 2 compliance, and so forth. That's how we leverage our approach in terms of if we set the bar very high that we're always going to be able to support organizations like the government, usually the other components will take care of itself. And then naturally we work within our customers to understand, do we need to build out more robustness? But it does take the community of tech companies working cohesively to come up with those strategies, to come up with those barriers and those fences in order to make sure that we're all aligned, that we have another network of vendors and so forth that we can leverage. So you have a lot of VPN companies out there. You have data logging companies. Are they taking the right practices into their business so that way they're repeatable when we build software stacks for companies? And so I do think taking that security first approach is really something that needs to be considered. And there's some trade-offs that happen in that. So, making sure that we stay on the leading edge of those things is important, because one of the benefits of cloud is the speed and the accessibility to the latest and greatest hardware, to the latest and greatest software, and so forth. But you can take performance hits if you don't set it up correctly. So I think, again, coming together as a community, understanding what's in the ecosystem, and making sure you're partnering with those companies and you're pushing them based on the new regulations that are out, the new policies that are out, and so forth, and making sure they're staying on the cutting edge with you.
Brian, I do want to take a pause here and talk about something else that is really our job number one personally, and I'm sure it's very important for Accent as well, which is security. Can you tell us a bit more about how security plays a role in your products and in your industry?
Absolutely. And I'm gonna answer that question in a couple of different ways. The second way I'll answer it is probably what most of the audience will like traditionally think of security, and it's an important one. I'm going to maybe call this first one safety, right? Because I think particularly in the space of police and state and local governments, as you start to talk about things like AI, drones, humanoid robots, like it's very easy to conjure up a dystopian future that none of us want to live in. And so Axon, as a technology company, we are emphatically and have deep conviction around what we call like responsible innovation, right? So how do you use these technologies in a way that is truly a positive for society and our communities? And look, we operate in a space where there's no easy answers. The right answer, like there will be voices in society that sort of have a knee-jerk reaction to any of these technologies and just say, hey, like don't use them. And we sort of take a different approach to say, well, no, let's figure out a way to do this in a responsible way. We're very proud of an ethics and advisory board that we have that represents voices from our communities, that helps us navigate some of these things from many diverse lenses, and has been like super influential on development of products like Draft One that uses AI to do something that's like kind of important, but it's kind of a big deal if you get it wrong. Now, so that's the safety side. Let's get more deeply into security. So we operate what we think is the world's largest repository of digital evidence. And you can imagine that there are all sorts of bad actors that potentially would love to either get a hold of that evidence or tamper with it or whatever. So for us and our customers, security is paramount. And as we look at technology partners as well, any sort of like certification from a regulatory perspective that we need to make sure that our partners have as well. And so Axon, in conjunction with, I think our partners in Azure, has been able to navigate like all sorts of these regulatory frameworks that allow us to safely and securely operate our technology, in environments like the federal government or, kind of international countries that, have data sovereignty, concerns. And together, again, with as a partner here, like we've been able to navigate those.
So can you tell us what have you learned and what do you see about the importance of privacy and security with the rise of AI, Guillermo, in the educational industry?
Right. So I will give you some examples. The case of Costa Rica is very clear. In Mexico, we also have several states in Mexico using our tools. And we're having data from kids. It's data from minors. It becomes very important to comply with several data privacy standards. It goes from FERPA to GDPR, depending on what's best, depending on where you're working on. But the most important thing is, on one side, telling the user, hey, we will send the data to the AI. On the other side is how we are going to use that data. And what becomes very important, and that's, I will say, the responsibility and accountability of companies like us on, hey, this data is going to be used just for the student and institutions purposes. And once you fence the data, it becomes clear that it's not being used for other purposes other than learning, other than teaching. And the privacy concerns, it's the same way like 20, 30 years ago, we had a lot of privacy concerns around internet and even around social networks. The next step is now, hey, how that data is being sent to the AI or being used by AI. An important thing is continue to use all these standards that most of them haven't got there yet. But still, as a company, understanding, hey, how can I adapt the standard to what I'm using?
Yeah, you can imagine that cybersecurity is really a key concern and also an important differentiator in our industries. And it's not new. I mean, you can imagine if you're in an asset-intensive industry like ours, a chemical plant, an electric grid, these things can't fail. They're critical infrastructure, they're safety relevant, etc. So we take cybersecurity very, very seriously and employing standards like ISO 27001, NIST, NERC, you name it, and also secure development principles. And it's not just that this is, a new thing, but as it's, world is changing, it's just becoming more and more important. And it's also a significant differentiation that we see, given that we have this background from this space, our practices are then in the end also in broader areas a differentiation for us. You've seen multiple countries that have been, releasing standards around AI, around cybersecurity regulations recently in Europe, that even fine unsecure OT data aggregation. So this is also something where, for example, homegrown peer-to-peer connections, they can get penalized. And for us, it's an opportunity because we always, bet on this more secure infrastructure. We have also an offering around an OT data fabric that really allows, securing this data in an efficient way, fostering connectivity, not just peer-to-peer, but in this fabric way. And then also, enabling connectivity to third parties, cloud, and compute, where you need to do it for your particular application.
I think you're bang on. Security is prime in all this, and I think AI and the application of AI to security components is crucial within the most highly regulated industry on earth. And so what we're doing within Zafin is obviously technology security is prime, and what we're doing is testing out new AI applications within the way how we operate internally at Zafin. So think about it as, how do we apply AI to continuous monitoring and automated auditing of what we do internally? How do we use NLP, natural language processing, for threat detection internally? How do we use AI for insider threat detection? So all these are components of the application of AI that essentially ultimately will bring benefits to our customers because it increases our security stance.
And that's it. That's the best part of 7 different leaders and experts into what they think about security for their respective industries. Now, it really makes me want to go back and listen to the entire conversation because they do mention some things that remind me of the most exciting parts of all those podcast episodes.
Totally agree. And I'm really glad that we asked this question in every single one of them, because while they all expressed its importance, they really provided different perspectives and really prove why this should be everyone's number one priority.
Yeah, and for our listener, we'd love to hear also what stood out to you during those conversations. Now that we put them all together, are you motivated to go back into a specific industry or maybe even do more into an industry that you weren't considering for this year? Remember, we have our LinkedIn partner community that you can always ask us questions or even provide feedback on what you've liked about season 2.
Yeah, I'm going to add one tip here too, Fede, on that. If you get into our America's Partner community on LinkedIn, make sure you do a hashtag no slides attached so that we see that comment. And if you haven't seen our previous episode yet, we also put together a highlight reel of our experts predicting what AI will achieve in their industries in the near future.
Yeah, I really like that one. That's the best way we can start this year with AI predictions for 2025. And now, obviously, how to drive all those through secure AI innovation. See you next time. Thanks for tuning in today. We hope today's conversations have ignited fresh perspectives and inspired you to take new opportunities in this changing landscape of AI.
Stay tuned for more insights and stories on No Slides Attached. Be sure to listen in and follow us at noslidesAttached.com or wherever you get your favorite podcasts.